All right, it is time for our weekly market update, Dad. There's a lot of headlines in the news this week that are affecting car prices. We've got data from Black Book that we'll go over in just a second. We have the Manheim market report, their values going down from record highs. Let's start with a few of the pieces that are moving the needle in automotive right now, i.e. we've got gas prices sky high. We've got nickel prices have never been higher. That's going to hurt the EV segment. And we also have supply chain issues left and right with wiring harnesses
and neon issues.
And neon issues.
Yes.
That's the landscape.
Pretty rocky.
Very rocky. Now, what we're seeing, the data.
Yes.
Let's start with, I guess, from Black Book, Dad. The most significant week-over-week wholesale used car price declines so far this year.
Yes. And in comparison to what we would have considered normal times, 2017 to 2019, the car segment declined at a 3 times rate that it did for the same week in 2017 and 19. Typically, we would expect declines in the used car segment of about a third of a percentage point. It declined nearly a point.
And to be clear, that means the prices that car dealers are paying for wholesale to buy vehicles. The truck segment was down nearly a point as well, 0.85%. The market overall about 0.9%. Now, for the first time in a long time, it seems like the declines are pretty uniform. So, for example, in the car segment, everyone's down.
Yes.
Everyone's down, especially mid-sized cars that experienced nearly a 1.5 drop week over week. Yes. Last week was over a point as well. So we're seeing very significant declines in wholesale used car values.
Yes, and I think I think moving forward, your fuller size vehicles that don't get as good a gas mileage, I think those declines will be significant and rapid.
We talked a little bit about this last week in last week's market update. We were really excited for this week to say, okay, is the trend continuing? And there's that preface for this, this update, which is I can't wait to see next week's because now we have all the gas price issues, the nickel price issues. Let's see how that affects the wholesale market as well. Because let's touch on trucks, SUVs, things like that. For the first time ever, vans are hovering close to not appreciating. When I say vans, I mean full-size vans.
Yeah, full-size vans.
And we even have from Black Book Data, I know we didn't queue it up for this video, but the RV market update. The RV market's actually finally starting to soften for the first time in well over a year. And I think that's another indication of
that's
weakening consumer demand.
Well, and for the RV market, it's not just going to be weakening consumer demand. The weakening consumer demand will be driven by the fact that it costs so damn much to fill one of those up with fuel.
I agree with you, but the report that Black Book put out was before gas prices have accelerated the way that we have. I think that will be an accelerant to their decline in values.
Yes, that's what I mean.
But I think that's why it's so telling to see. Like, for example, if we just hopped on for the first time and we didn't see this trend of downward, heck, even this week, Dad, the fact that overall the market dropped 0.9%, that's not because of gas prices yet.
No, not yet, but it will be next week.
But that's just what we've been talking about over the past couple weeks. That's weakening consumer demand.
Yes.
And so what's interesting here is we have weakening consumer demand. We still have not enough new car inventory. That's why when we talk about wiring harnesses and nickel shortages and neon shortages, new car inventory levels are probably going to go even lower than they've been.
Yes.
But we have weakening consumer demand, so that's driving used car prices down. And then we have gas prices on top of that going through the roof. Our crystal ball is notoriously fuzzy, but you've got to see and think here that prices are going to continue to crumble.
There has been weakening consumer demand, and that will be exacerbated by the tumultuous rise in fuel prices. Diesel and gasoline prices have gone through the roof. We're at an all-time record high for average gas prices in this country. Well, that will impact how consumers view different segments of the car market and the truck market. And those vehicles that don't get particularly good gas mileage are going to be hit the hardest because the shock of filling up your vehicle with gas when it hits $80 or $90 or $100 to fill your vehicle, that's just going to scare people. And herd mentality will take over, and people will just flock to get rid of those vehicles that don't that don't get good gas mileage, and the values of those are going to fall like a rock.
Yeah, no, I think you're likely spot on. We have seen, though, and Black Book provides this data to us, the sales rate at the auctions ticked up just a little bit, which is kind of a forward-looking measurement of how healthy the auctions are, how
Yes.
healthy the dealer auctions are. During the spring selling season, you would expect dealers to be fighting over inventory even more, i.e. a higher sales rate at the auction because consumers are flush with cash from tax season and
Yes.
they're going to go spend it. So we did see a little bit of a tick up in sales rate, not a huge tick up from 62% to 64%, but I'm interested to see, will the spring selling season really even happen this year?
I think there's so much going on in the world, and it's all happening so rapidly
Yeah.
that it's hard for these markets to keep up with that. I think fear on the consumer's part is going to cause vehicle sales to slow down even more than they normally would have.
I agree with you.
Except for those folks who are trying to get out of their gas-guzzling vehicles. Those people, because they'll get hit in the pocketbook every time they go to fill up, those people are going to make a decision that they need to do something now. But I just think there will be a certain fear in consumers' minds that even though it might be tax season and there's refunds to be had, because the future is so fuzzy, because things don't feel all that good at the moment,
Yeah.
that will dent consumer demand for just about everything.
And now, just to be clear, one of the things that Cox Automotive shares with us, they put into their reports is that consumer sentiment. Okay, and consumer sentiment was down in February as measured by the Conference Board as well as by the Morning Consult. Like the Michigan Index for Consumer Sentiment as well. So consumer sentiment is falling amidst all these things happening, and that was in February. That was before what we're currently
before all
experiencing.
this stuff happening. So it's only going to get worse. I wouldn't anticipate.
Well, worse is a relative term because for some
Okay.
people, let's be clear. Let's be very clear. If you're a hybrid owner and you want to sell your hybrid, it's going to get better
Yes. Okay.
because your hybrid's about to be worth way more.
Yes.
Heck, even maybe with EVs, your EV is going to be worth a heck of a lot more. If you don't need to buy a car, the sentiment is still the same. Still, do not buy a car. If you enjoy the car that you have, get really comfortable holding on to it because things look very unclear. So I wouldn't necessarily characterize things as worse, better, or worse. It depends on what situation you're in. If you have to buy a car, the area maybe to find the best deal is going to be that gas guzzler. The challenging thing there is filling it up is going to be very expensive. So it's simply, I think, trade-offs, and it depends on your situation.
I still think it's going to get worse. I just do. I there's a certain herd mentality that happens. There's a group psychology that happens. And as groups become more fearful of what the future holds, it overtakes the rest of the group. And so it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But me, I'm going to spend like there's no tomorrow.
All right, tune in next week. We'll let you know what's going on in the market then. Thanks as always, Pops.
Thank you.